All right, joined now by Khahil of the Locked On Pistons podcast. Thank you so much for hopping in, man. We're going to chat Detroit now for the alley-oop. How does one even really discuss a 3-33 team? I know you've probably been struggling with that all podcast schedule basically. It's not that bad. Like I just watched this team on Sunday, and they're bad, but like they're not that bad. How have you been? How have you been faring?
So there's one thing I gotta tell you: they are 100% that bad.
Oh,
they,
oh,
they are 100% that bad. Against Denver, they looked bad. But
yeah.
for the majority of this losing streak, for the majority of this season, they have been indeed that horrific. It's and on a lot of nights they don't even look like a NBA team. It's been rough. It 100% has been very rough basketball to watch day in and day out.
Sorry to hear that. It's I know that is it's the nightmare for anybody that's covering a team, especially when you're trying to do something like that and you're trying to do work for them and like you're trying to do this. So I feel for you, man. I really do. And then on top of it, you just get the news earlier today that the Cade Cunningham injury, knee injury, it isn't as serious as what people might have thought. But what can you tell us about just what that situation has become?
Cade's gonna be all right. He had bumped knees in the Golden State Warriors game right before the Denver game. That's where it first happened at, and then in the Denver game, had a little tweak, and they sat him out for the rest of the game. I talked to someone close to Cade. He's doing good. He's in good spirits. Nothing. He's not like he's having he's hard to walk or anything. Like he's good. He'll be straight. He'll be back in a few games or so. At least that's what it sounds like. MRI confirmed that it's nothing serious. So, just bump knees, a normal basketball play that happens all the time. He'll be straight. Probably miss, I think, like maybe 2 weeks or something. But yeah, nothing long-term serious-wise at all.
All right, good to hear. We talk about fun reasons to watch the Detroit Pistons. Like he is at the top of the list. He might be 1A, B, and C right now. Just the way
he's the only thing on the list.
Like he's been good. He's been really, really good, and I'm glad that there's some vindication there, and especially for people that believed in him and believed in his skill set, because we talked about this in the way that they're optimizing him in our last check-in, starting two bigs, not really playing Jaden Ivey. Now you get back Bojan. I started Isaiah Livers in this last game, and you've got a lineup that has spacing, just looks more functional. I thought it looked decent. I thought it looked pretty good, and Denver may not have been providing the staunchest of efforts, but I thought that they were playing good hoops, and until Cade ultimately went down. Just what has that been like? Just trying to get to that place where it's been functional, and like seeing Bojan come back, it seems like he's playing pretty well.
Bojan for sure is playing pretty well for him. Since Bojan returned, they're still 1-16. But yeah, he's playing well. He offensively, that is, he's playing well. He looks like he did last year. He's shooting the ball really well, scoring the ball very efficiently. So Bojan, he looks fine. And as of late, over the last, I think, like 3 or 4 games or so, like very recently, they started to go full on this offensive spacing unit in the starting lineup with Isaiah Livers. Before Livers, it was Kevin Knox with Bojan. So they had went completely full on, try to provide spacing and offense over the last, I'd say, like maybe week and a half or so. That was a change Monty Williams had made. The problem is that they're horrific defensively. Even like they're historically bad defensively with that unit. And they're not going to be good enough offensively to make up for such thing. But like you mentioned, Cade's looked really good over the last month and a half. It looks very clearly that he's taking that step that everyone was expecting him to do as the number 1 overall pick. Over the last 25 games, 47% from the field, 36% from deep on 5.5 attempts, 87% from the free throw line, 24-7, 4 splits, right around a 58 true shooting percentage. So he's taking that leap. He's taking that jump that we expected to see him take. And a lot of it does have to do with the fact that they're providing him some space. It's just, again, the problem is that this front office didn't surround him with the pieces that allow you to have spacing while also not completely giving up on defense, which is like their choice here. It's at the beginning of the year, they went full defense, and they weren't good enough defensively, even while going full defense, to make up for how bad they are offensively. And it's the same thing with the offense now. They're not going to be good enough offensively to make up for the fact they're going to be historically bad defensively. So it's really just pick your poison. You fill one hole in the ship, another one opens up. So at least with this one, you get to see like what Cade will look like if he has, optimal spacing around him.
Yeah, I like Duren. I think that he's really talented. I've liked the way that he finishes around the rim, and he's got some creative finishes. I even saw him taking off the dribble jumper, going up against DeAndre Jordan, and be like, okay, hey, you've got some smoothness to your game. That looks pretty good. I tend to like so when we talk about offense versus defense, and you talk about, man, how can you really build out lineups like that? Ivy's a guy that I'm sure like his defense probably leaves a lot to be desired. Bojan obviously is going to leave a lot of defense to be desired there. Livers is just a role player. Like he's not in the final form, I would say, of what this team is going to look like when they get to their place that they want to go. So it's really those three spots to me. We've talked about Duren. Still think he's the center of the future. Still think he's a guy that you can really count on. Still think Cade's the point guard, or at least like the playmaking wing, whatever you want to call him. It really is just those three middle spots that like you gotta pick and choose. You gotta figure it out. Ausar Thompson is still obviously in there. Has he slowed down a little bit? I've seen some numbers that see him trending down a little.
No, yeah, he's definitely been trending down a lot since the first 12-ish games. The first 12 games of the year, he was around like 12 points a game, 10 rebounds a game, 4 or 5 assists with like 2 blocks, a steal and a half, and like
it's crazy.
He was just stuffing the box score. He was like fantastic, absolutely like completely fantastic. And again, that was during the time where Monty was going that full defensive lineup and playing him 30+ minutes a game. He was tasked with guarding the best offensive player. You were seeing some of his weak side rim protection as well. Like he was just showcasing the full repertoire defensively. He was out of this world defensively. And then offensively, you were starting to see him, he didn't have the ball in his hands a ton at all. When he did, he was making the right pass. He was, cutting to the basket, backdoor layups, backdoor dunks. And I still don't even feel like they were using him in the best ways possible offensively. You can still get him involved in DHOs. You can use him as a screener, getting him downhill. You can use him in zoom action. There's all kinds of things you can do with Ausar because of how versatile of a skill set he has. While, yes, he can't shoot, the fact that he's versatile offensively allows you to get past that, which is what should be happening. But since those first 12 games, like I said, they've went away from defensive lineups, and they've now went to the full shooting lineup, which now, of course, that's not going to include Ausar Thompson. That's where he falls out of favor.
Sure.
And along with that, he's not even getting a lot of minutes either. He's spending a lot of time spotting up in the corner now. He's no longer being used with the ball in his hands. He's no longer getting a ton of minutes, soaking up, touch or reps as the primary defender on guys. You're not utilizing his unique skill set. Like that has gone completely, almost out the window completely. I wouldn't even say it was by no fault of his own. It was just this team doesn't know what it wants to be, and it's partially because they don't have the options to choose to be anything. All they can choose to be is bad, and like the coaching staff is trying to find something that makes them not bad. But at the end of the day, the roster is what it is, and you can't avoid that. It's just you're going to be bad nonetheless. Which is why I'm hoping at 3-33, possibly having the worst season in professional sports history, the team starts to say, you know what, this season's lost cause. Let's get our young guys minutes again, and you start to see Ausar not touch the ball, but touch the court a little bit more. It's going to be interesting, man, because Troy Weaver was just on the Woj podcast, and he talked about that fit stuff. He said, I think Ausar and Duren and Ivy fit together athletically. I think Duren and Cade fit together pick and roll wise, but like he wouldn't just say all 4 of them fit together. And like as a 4-man unit. So I think it can happen. You need a shooter in there, a 2-way guy. But maybe this coaching staff doesn't feel like they can utilize them all together. And they definitely don't have the roster to put it at its utmost success rate. So it's going to be interesting to see how what happens with those 4 guys moving forward, how they build around them. I can say for sure having Ausar and Duren on the floor shouldn't be such a tough because they're both such good passers and playmakers, it should not be such a hard concept to where it's literally pick one or the other one just can't play. Like that shouldn't be the case.
Yeah, also you should be able to get out and run a little bit. You should, like, if SR is making an impact defensively, you should be able to take advantage of his physical traits and like get some stops on the defensive end and then take advantage of that in transition. That should be the goal, the next priority. But we've also seen a couple of like it's funny you bring up Troy Weaver. Seen some rumors about Siakam, seen some rumors about buyers, see some rumors about how they want to get better. They want to add some veterans. And to be honest, I don't know if it's the worst idea in the world. I know you don't want to give up a bunch of assets as a rebuilding team, but you talked about the roster just not being good enough. Sometimes maybe it's just about getting functional again, and maybe Pascal Siakam or somebody like that could help. Is that something that has been bandied about on Detroit Twitter?
So Pascal's not going to happen.
Okay.
They did have some interest in him, but Pascal's an unrestricted free agent. He would have to want to re-sign Detroit, and Detroit also would need to have the assets. From what I understand, what I've heard, that lasted a very small amount of time from both sides.
Okay.
Secondly, they need to pick a route, and I've talked about this on the podcast for the last 2 weeks. They need to pick a route. Either they need to pick the route to just go full-on tank. This team's 3-33. It is what it is. This season's done for. We're just going to play all the young guys. We're getting rid of all the veterans, getting all the assets we possibly can to build for this offseason. Have assets for what we can for this offseason to make trades, because they talk a ton about how they want to be able to make trades for big-time players because of the open salary cap they have long-term and to swap expiring contracts and all that stuff. At the end of the day, you still need to have assets with those expiring contracts to make something happen. So either choose the route of getting rid of Bojan, getting rid of Burks, getting rid of anything that has potential value and get whatever asset you can. Be ready for this offseason and just give all your young guys minutes. That's one route. Or you can take the route to try to go get guys who can help you win now, because Cade is clearly showing he's taking that step and is ready to have those type of players around him. If he has those players around him, you'll win more games. It's not one of those, you'll get those guys, you don't know if your young guy's ready. Is it too early? Is he not there? We're seeing Cade over the last month and a half take that step. He's ready to have some teammates around him that are functional. So either the tanking route or go get some real NBA players. And yes, you may not make the playoffs this year, but you'll be sized up for the future moving forward into next year. You can see for this half of the season what it looks like with Cade and guys around him who look functional. You get the kind of like how the Orlando Magic, they didn't make any moves, where the Orlando Magic started off 5-25, and then the rest of the year they played 500 basketball and they felt really strong going in the offseason. And then they knew what to do. The Pistons at 3-33, it's going to be longer down the road. It's going to be worse. But the same point remains. You can make some moves, and then here on out from the rest of the season, yeah, we started 3-33, but we made these moves. They look really good around Cade. They played really well together. We feel good about where we're going into the next season. We should be much better now moving to the next season. Like that's the two routes they can choose. The route they cannot choose to go is sitting at the stop sign expecting the weather to change when it's not. Like, the weather is not changing. It's a thunderstorm, it's raining, and it's not stopping. So this not doing anything is not an option. They need to choose one of those two routes. I don't know which one they're going to choose. They may choose to just sit there and do nothing, because it's been 36 games and they've won 3 of them and they've still done nothing. So who knows? But they need to choose one of those routes.
Yeah. Picking a direction, obviously, like it is the most important thing, or else you're going to become the Sacramento Kings for 15 years or the Orlando Magic for 10 years or whoever. And I think Detroit is probably tired of that. Detroit had a whole bunch of issues drafting and developing. And I think when you got a guy like Cade, when you figure out that you've got that dude and you've got a guy like Duren who pairs perfectly with him, in my opinion, then I think it's reasonable, if you believe in those guys and you believe in the function of it, to go be aggressive and to try to add some guys that you believe in long term. Now, they tried a little bit of that. They added Monte Morris. They added Joe Harris. I know some of those are kind of salary dump-ish, but like they haven't worked out for health reasons. They haven't worked out for reasons beyond Detroit's control in some ways. If you go out and actually spend that money and go bring in somebody that makes sense, then maybe the fortunes change drastically. I won't sit here and predict that. I won't sit here and say that that's definitely going to happen, but I'd like to see Detroit whether it is like you said, commit to a direction. It is pick one. You could either go try to get the number one pick in the draft and then recenter things in the offseason, or go get aggressive even at the deadline. That'd be pretty cool to see.
Yeah, I'm hoping something happens, man. Because like I said, staying and doing nothing, not only are you hurting, not only are you losing more games, and you're going to have like the worst season in NBA history, no joke. The worst one's at 9 games. I don't think they're going to get to 9 games with this team currently constructed. No joke. Not only are you going to be going down the history books as that, you're hurting your young players' development because they don't have the right people around them to help them develop on the court. The only one who's finding success out of this is Cade, with the spacing around him. And even I don't think Cade would even consider this a success or development for him because they're losing so many games. I know, talking with people, this is really taking a toll on him mentally. Even despite the fact that he's played so well the last month and a half. In fact, he's getting some attention for finally, people are finally acknowledging him as like the number 1 overall pick, and he's looking like how everyone that's not helping him. Like, he is very much taking on a toll mentally with this losing streak. It's not helping Jaden Ivey. You're seeing bad habits come back with Ivey. Jalen Duren, I'm starting to see some bad habits come up with Jalen Duren. He's not developing defensively because he has no defenders in front of him. It's making everything harder on him defensively. Like, it's not helping anybody in this situation by not doing anything. That's hurting everyone. So you need to pick a route, and hopefully, they do that soon. Whether it's with Troy Weaver or without him. Whether the route is to get rid of Weaver and go somewhere else. Like, that could be the option too. Like, something has to go down.
Yeah, I certainly wouldn't turn my nose up at that because he's had plenty of time. He's had plenty of time to figure this thing out, and it just hasn't been figured out. So we'll see what happens. We'll see whether the situation improves. But he is Khahil of the Locked On Pistons podcast, covering the Detroit Pistons for the Alley Oop here. Koo, thank you so much for taking the time, man. Let's chat after the deadline, all right?
All right, hopefully there's some changes at that point.